January. And what happened up until January is it took a little bit of a correction with the interest rates, and that's what the RBA was trying to achieve. Now, it's actually, we've just got the fresh data coming through this year at the end of the year, it's pretty much back up to its spike. So what I've actually put together here is, since 83, it's a 40-year performance of all the measures, and it's really interesting to put information together because we've grabbed all of the units, and we've grabbed all of the houses. So all of the units are the orange line, so that's strata, and all the times title is the blue. And they perform, even though one's higher than the other, they actually perform in sync the whole way. So relatively, they're going to be very, very close the whole way along. So I think the same highlight that most in real estate is the property market's been excellent the last 100 years, and it's going to be excellent the next 100 years. So I think that's a really good view to take on. If you're looking at your appetite at the moment, you're thinking about interest rates and what do I do, and should I be borrowing more money, should I be getting in when no one is actually getting in, I really urge people to have that long view on that property market, because you can see it does double every 10 years, and it's done that for almost 100 years now in the northern region. So it's just a really positive market to get into. There's other markets you can invest into stocks. You can invest into Bitcoin, which I've seen some people do lately. Different asset classes that you can invest in. But the asset class of property I love because you can leverage on it. And I really urge everyone to think about leveraging. Can anyone hear me properly? Everyone's good? Yeah. So when you're looking at the property market, my mother-in-law said something to me a couple of about a year or two ago, and she talked about getting a rate of return from her accountant at about 16% or 17%. And she was quite excited about that rate of return. Now, fundamentally, that sounds exciting, but when you're taking your money, and I really want people to have a good long hard think about this, if you're taking $100,000 of your money and you're giving it to your accountant to invest at 13, 14, 15%, it sounds good on the outset, but what are they going to do with your money? What often happens is they use that cash to leverage. And I want you guys to use that cash to leverage instead. So what they do is they put that 20% down in cash and they then borrow 80% to go and buy something further. So often they're giving you a great rate of return on your money, but you can actually, with your own money and finding your own market, you can actually enjoy 5 times the growth of the money that you're putting in when you're leveraging it. Now, property will do that. If I said to someone, and I'll put it into perspective, if I said to someone, I'm going to go and buy Bitcoin, I'm going to have to put in $100,000 and how much return I'm going to get from that. If I take that money that I was going to invest, and I say to the bank, I'm thinking of buying Bitcoin, they're going to go, good luck. They're not going to allow me to leverage that money. In Australia, in our banking system, with property, I can turn around to the bank and say, I've got 100,000, and the bank, if you meet all the criteria, will say, we'll give you 400,000. So you put 100,000, they give you 400,000, you enjoy your rent from 500,000, not 100,000. You enjoy the capital growth from 500,000, not 100,000. And that is the fundamental thing I want you guys to take away from tonight. That when you're looking at different other asset classes in Australia, property is an asset classes that the banks will back. And there's not many asset classes that they'll do. If you turn around and say, well, I want to buy a stock, they're going to ask you which stock. Where, and probably most of them, they won't lend on. And if that stock changes, they're not going to do it for 4 months' time or 6 months' time. You get a loan for a property, but they're not going to do it for 25 or 30 years as long as you get that loan. So tonight, moving forward into a high, we think of it as a high interest rate market, but it's quite regular to what we've seen over the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. But in this market, I want you really to have a think about that graph, and then you can leverage your money when buying. tonight we're going to just quickly show you some of the things that Lisa and I have invested in as well in the property market now and in the past, and how that's performed. And I think that's really, really interesting. So Billy and Bidan are going to have a talk about, there's a couple of new projects coming on. We've got 200 units across the road, believe it or not, coming on the market. We've got one coming on the market, some warehouses which are up in next to the new Bunnings. The biggest Bunnings in Australia is being built next to Harandi and next to French's Forest, which is strategically a very clever place, so I think, to invest, because it's 10 minutes in Manly, 10 minutes in Running, 10 minutes in Deagon, 10 minutes in Chatswood. So it's a good investment. You put your 10% down, you don't sell it for 2 or 3 years. We're going to have a good talk about that, good off the plan. We've also got Harry here tonight, who's going to be talking about super. We've been doing some transactions lately where people aren't actually qualifying for a loan when they go to the bank, but they've got what I call a half-breaking amount of money in their super that they can't really do anything with. It's not enough to buy an $800,000 unit, but it's enough to take 100,000, then maybe 100,000 here, 70,000 here, 150,000, stuff, otherwise all it is. So that's where Harry's going to talk a little bit about super. And then also we're going to talk to Anthony. I like Anthony because he's a gentleman and he's highly transactional. So it would be a legal firm on the Northern Beaches that sees as many transactions as his company, which is huge. So I really want to dig deep and understand a little bit about what people are buying, what people are selling, what they're doing. He's also going to be talking about the biggest topic he deals with clients at the moment, strata. So thanks for coming tonight. We're going to just run through this information. The most important thing I want you to get out of tonight is a relationship. You've got people here which are here for you. If you have any questions, real estate, not just tonight, but for your journey. So Anthony's a great lawyer to employ, and he's always there for you. Harry's an incredible accountant. These guys will talk the numbers through with you. Bidan and Billy will talk about some good properties at the moment that I've invested in as well. So just a bit of educational to understand what's happening. And the questions we're going to ask every day, we're going to run through those. And then when we finish, drinks, food, let's have a further chat. If anyone's got any questions, thank you so much for coming. And I'm going to pass you over to Harry. Okay, Harry's up.
Harry.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, Legend. Pleasure. Now, tell us a little about in the accounting world. You're seeing, what are you seeing out in property at the moment, Harry?
Yeah, so with properties, as Mark mentioned, some people just don't have enough funds to purchase a property in their own name, and they're looking at other avenues to purchase property. Some of the biggest problems that I see in property or any type of investment is that some people purchase property in the incorrect vehicle, such as either in their own name or a trust, and they forget about how you can purchase property in a different investment structure, such as a super fund. Now, what that allows you to do is that allows you to pick and choose when you want to sell the investment from the most tax-effective way.
Yep.
I've seen some clients in their 70s and 80s paying income tax installments.
Wow.
You don't want to be paying income tax installments in your 80s. That's because they purchased property in the wrong vehicle. Either in their own name, they built wealth in their own name and didn't utilise the super fund to minimise tax. If they didn't get that advice in their 50s and 40s and possibly in their 60s, and they built wealth in their own name, and they're now paying income tax installments.
Yeah, interesting. So Harry, we had a recent example where a lady we had for sale, she only had 130,000 in super. She bought a storage in Chroma for that. Was that a hard thing for first of all, from an accountant's perspective, was it a hard thing to organise the super and things like that? And did you see it as a good investment?
Yeah, I did. I thought she had, the most important thing is that you've got to do your own research. She approached us, she had done the numbers. Her super fund was returning a much lower rate than what the property would have. So the super fund was, industry fund was probably returning somewhere between 3 to 5%, whereas some of the storage units Mark has on for sale, if you look at the numbers, the growth is 20-30% over 3 years, and some of the yields are on 7%.
50%.
50%.
Maybe the one thing sitting on was great. We did one they bought 3 years ago, 52% capital growth in that 3-year period.
And the yields like 7%.
Yeah, something between 5 and 7%.
So you're even ahead just on the rental yield, let alone the tax saving. But the first thing to do is look at your industry fund. What's the rate of return, and can you do a better job than the industry fund? And some people are confident they can, because they can invest in other assets. They will, rather than somebody else picking and choosing investments for you.
Yeah, got it. Now, tell me, what's the hardest thing that you're finding as an accountant when people are coming to you to 2023? What's the sort of the big thing on people's minds?
Yeah, look, they're sort of not really organised from a tax perspective. They're obviously buying, at a rate that they're not familiar with in certain areas and wrong structures. That's the biggest problem. They're buying in different structures for them, and not in the most tax effective way.
Yeah, right. So, in the preparation for 2024, what are you telling clients to do from an accountant's perspective?
So, look at your finances 3 months before financial year, see where you stand, do a tax plan. What tax are you up for? Have a look in April, May, and what can you do for the last 2 months of the financial year? Don't wait for June to finish for you to start planning.
Because that number sort of drops.
And your age is important too. You've got to really plan for it, because once you get to 70, 75, you can't contribute to the super. So you really try and put as much money, not financial advice, but you've got to try and get as much money for super as you can before retirement. And once you hit, 75, you can't put any more money in.
Yeah.
And the average norm is that you should have at least $2 million in super to retire comfortably.
Is it really that
Yeah,
much?
that's the sort of.
Okay. Now, something just for everyone who may not know, and there is a bit of super discussion going on at the moment we're talking about, but something that I love about super, and that people may not know, is that if I buy a unit today for $800,000 in my name, and I sell it in a year's time, I can pay capital gains tax. So, off the graph I was showing you before, 10 years time is going to be 1.6. I'm going to have to pay $800,000. There's $800,000 profit. Half of that will be taxed.
25% for the tax rate in your personal name.
Right.
Yeah. But if you have it in super, you can buy a property today, and when you're 60, and you sell it when you're 60 years old, all that growth can be tax-free when you start a pension.
Okay. So, guys, something I wanted to take around today, and we're not going to just plug super, but it is an avenue for you guys. I think it's a good appetite to have a little bit of. I want you to remember that if you buy property in your name today for $800,000 and it's worth 1.6, I've got to pay tax on that. But if I buy my super, I don't have to pay tax provided I'm retired.
Correct. And how you're 60 years old.
One other thing I want to ask you about, and this is the next big one to look for, guys, if we want to have a little bit of income when we're retired. And when we're retired, and I bought that unit for $800,000 in my super, it's now worth $1.6 million in my super, and I've got rent coming in. I'm not going to sell it. Now that rent coming in, I'll generally have to give half to the taxman or 30% to the taxman. But if it's owned in my super,
It's only super when you're 60 years old and you started an account-based pension, all that rental income is tax-free. Up to a cap of $1.9 billion of the asset value. So you're trying to exceed 1.9 million of the asset value.
Yep.
But up to that cap, all the earnings on that 1.9 million, and you've reached, if you start an account-based pension, that income is tax-free.
Okay, so guys, I want you to take that number away tonight. You've got a question?
Yeah, one question. You said the property and over 60, you have to pay capital gains tax.
That's right, yeah.
No matter, I mean, you use your money or savings, it's not coming from the superannuation that you save. You don't pay any tax.
That's right. So if you buy a property in your 50s, when you're 50 years old, and you get to a retirement age, you start to that growth of that asset, and if you sell it after you retire, it's tax-free. But if you bought it outside super, all of that growth is taxable.
Yes, it's 67 or 60?
60.
60. So before you retire.
Yeah, 60.
Thank you.
Yes.
How much we can borrow against the super? If I have 300,000 pounds, I can borrow quite some.
With the Oriel rules, it's really strict. So they want to come up with at least a 20% deposit. That's what most of the banks are asking for with superannuation.
Up to 80%.
Yeah.
How much I am earning and how much I pay for the tax?
No. Super is a separate entity. It's separately outside. You earn as an entity.
And depends on how much you can collect on the rate or something from the new product.
That's right. Yeah. The more rental income you get from that, the higher, the more you can borrow.
I love that. That's a good question. All right, Harry, I think everyone knows what you do and you're a weapon. Thank you. So if you've got any questions tonight, grab Harry and also some books afterwards. Let's have a chat and get some free accountant advice. No problem. Yeah. We'll get Miss Anthony ready. We'll walk out now if that's okay. Thank you, Richard. Mr. Medi. A good personal friend. A good personal friend, Mr. Medi. A good human. So, ladies and gentlemen, Anthony, HQL lawyers, what this man has done in the last 20 years in law, which hasn't been done before. A highly transactional company, very good knowledge base, amazing team that we built, and thank you for coming out in your time tonight. Anthony, what do you want to talk about?
Well, thank you, Mark. Tonight we are going to be talking about what I would consider to be the most important aspect of buying a property, a strata property, in terms of your due diligence, and that is the strata report. Now, if I can, I'd like to take you back, before we start talking about the strata report, I'd like to take you back to Mark Novak's nightclubbing days. If I may, it is relevant, so please bear with me. And this also, this was before Mark.
I was probably part of that.
Before Mark saw the light. This is before Mark met you. So
I think I saved you from going to jail.
okay, look, well, we're trying to stay away from the criminal record. But this is more about Mark's nightclubbing days. So if you can imagine, Mark's on the dance floor, he's got a drink in hand, and Mark is looking around, looking at various candidates to see which candidate will be most suitable for Mark. So Mark, can I please ask you, when you were on the dance floor, and where did you used to go nightclubbing, can I ask?
So I tried to prepare.
This is before Lisa, before you saw the light. This was your reckless days.
So proud that I'm released from the sleeping in the city.
Right, okay.
Before that, it was very straight.
Berry Street. Okay, so if I can take you back to your Berry Street days, you were on the dance floor looking at the prospective candidates. Can I ask you, Mark, what were some of the qualities, well, not so much qualities, but concerns that you had in these candidates as to why you may not progress in one of these candidates? Please give me four, if I can, Mark.
I know the four you gave me to say now. High maintenance.
High maintenance.
High maintenance.
So you were trying to avoid high maintenance.
High maintenance.
Okay, the second one?
Failed.
Oh,
I actually wrote these down. Showing signs of wear and tear.
okay. Again, if I was showing signs of wear and tear, you were stepping back.
Yeah,
And your third quality that you're
You
trying to
look at the mother.
you look at the
Yeah,
mother.
you look at the mother. If the mum's looking good, then I think your wife's going to be okay.
Okay, that's helpful. And your third one?
Concealing defects.
Concealing defects. Okay, is that about makeup or what's concealing defects? Okay, sure. And
This
number
is
four.
relating back to Australia, by the way.
Is this? Bear with me because we're going to come back to Australia.
Argumentative and likely to cause problems in the future.
Right. Okay. So once you've assessed this, you're then able to make an informed decision,
Yes.
and you would move in and secure the candidates.
Move in.
Okay. All right. Look, ladies and gentlemen, buying a strata property is not just similar to those 4 points that Mark has just raised. So when you get a strata report, I strongly encourage you all to review it very carefully yourself. Don't necessarily rely on the solicitor entirely or the conveyancer entirely, because their opinion of what is a satisfactory strata report is simply that, their opinion. And just as Mark on the dance floor wouldn't have been relying on his mate's opinion, you need to satisfy yourself. So if we can go back to those 4 points Mark said, high maintenance. So if we're looking at a strata building, carefully review the strata report, and if you see a pattern of electrical costs, plumbing costs, concreting, painting, issues consistently arising, you know that you're going to have very, very high strata levies. Now, both new buildings and old buildings can be guilty of being high maintenance. So be careful of high maintenance buildings. Number two, the second point Mark raised was about showing signs of wear and tear. Now, what we're talking about here is unforeseen costs, roof replacements, lift replacements, pool replacements. Sometimes we see these lovely terraces or lovely penthouse decks where the waterproofing may only have a life of 10 years. So all that needs to be ripped up and replaced. So be careful, because sometimes the forecast plan don't always allow for these items. Third thing on Mark's list was concealing defects. So often we're seeing in these strata reports, concrete cancer, remediation works, waterproofing issues. They can be very, very costly, and you can be guaranteed that if you can see it in one component of the building, it will surface in other components of the building. And if you're buying an investment, or Mark had the graph, you're looking for these returns, if you start paying $20,000 for a special levy, $50,000 for a special levy, your return is going to be next to nil. So be very, very careful of defects, concealed defects. And the fourth one on Mark's list was the argumentative and the candidate that may cause him grief in the future. And what I'm talking about here is court proceedings. Now, sometimes in these strata reports, we see the building is taken on, the strata is taken on the building, the builder. So let's bring the builder to court. Let's go and fight for the next 3 years to fix up $100,000 worth of defects and pay the lawyers $500,000 to do so. We see buildings, stratas fighting neighbours. Let's go and fight about a fence, or let's go and fight about a tree. We see buildings taken on council because their fire order doesn't comply. And sometimes we see buildings fighting with themselves. We see strata committee members fighting amongst each other because they've got too much time on their hands, and they might be retired, or they're fighting with an owner who unlawfully put down some floorboards. So think carefully whether or not you want to get into bed with this strata, because these problems become your problems. And these problems can be costly, these problems can be long-winded, and if these problems involve rectification works, it can be quite disruptive. So in closing, be very, very careful with your due diligence with strata reports, because it is probably the most important aspect. And as I said, don't rely on the solicitor entirely, don't rely on the conveyancer. Take a few hours, sit down, read the report carefully, and make sure that you are satisfied who you're getting into bed with. Because if you get it wrong, the exit strategy is going to be a costly and painful one. So it's not something to be taken lightly.
Anthony, I just want to ask you, I don't know if my mic's working, I'll grab yours. I just want to ask you, this is the question that comes up all the time, the difference between a solicitor and a conveyancer. Now, I deal with, we do
There's no
with
maintenance.
and I'm happy to shut the phone. Something's working. Yeah, I'll give that one back. So the difference between a solicitor and a conveyancer, because a lot of people don't realise when they're buying property there is a significant part that a solicitor or conveyancer plays in that property transaction. So one part is the real estate agent, and the other part is having a conveyancer or solicitor. And I just want to say this is not a paid advertisement. I always breathe a sigh of relief when I know that my clients are with you guys. I do. Because deals happen after hours. Ordinarily, most solicitors and conveyancers close at 5 o'clock. We cannot get a hold of a solicitor or conveyancer after 5 o'clock, yet all of our deals happen after hours. We can lose a sale because we could not get a hold of a solicitor or conveyancer. But I just want you to explain to everyone what is the difference.
Sure. Thank you, Lisa. So the difference between the conveyancer and the solicitor is that the conveyancer is qualified to assist you in transacting on a property. The solicitor has completed a 4 or 5 year university degree to understand other aspects of the law which may be important in that transaction. Now, it may be a town planning issue, it may be a tax issue, it may be a stamp duty issue, it may be an asset protection issue, how we structure the purchase. So the conveyancing is one component, and a good solicitor will add value with the rest of his knowledge that he brings to the table. And having said that, there are solicitors and some who don't offer much more than the conveyancing role, and there are other solicitors who will bring all that to the table.
So right now at the moment, and there are some phenomenal conveyancers out there, but at the moment I have got a very tricky settlement, and it's gone over and above the conveyancer's head, and they've had to now employ a litigation lawyer, and it's become a very costly exercise. Fees, can we just quickly talk about that before we're going to pass over to Billy and what sort of fees are we looking at?
Sure.
Just, for conveyancing through you guys.
Sure, yes. So a conveyancer may be around $1,000 to $1,500, or a solicitor may be $2,000 to $2,500, $3,000. And the conveyancer insurance cuts out at $10 million. So that's why you find sometimes that a conveyancer can't transact above $10 million, whereas our cover and our extended cover allows us to transact really at any level. But I agree with you, there are also some very, very good conveyancers out there who do their job really well.
Great. Guys, thank you so much. If we can thank Anthony, HPL, did you have more questions? Any legal questions that we can ask Anthony? Seriously, he is absolutely one of the best in the business. Mark?
So what's the question?
Did you have a question?
Question for Anthony.
Question for Anthony, legal questions. Anyone, guys?
Any legal questions? Free.
No? free legal advice.
Business gentleman who looks like a real estate agent.
Hi, Anthony.
Okay, Leighton.
Calvin. A lot of people struggle over when they're selling a property or buying a property, the difference from a 5-day cooling off to an unconditional contract. Sure. Can you just explain the clauses in the contract and about that?
Yeah, look, definitely. When transactions are done very quickly, ordinarily the agent and the vendor will allow a buyer 5 business days to complete all their due diligence. But if a buyer has had sufficient opportunity to do all that, or if the property is selling by option, then all that due diligence must be done prior, and the expectation is that the contracts will be exchanged unconditionally. And there are also a few naughty selling agents out there who will give a buyer, perhaps 1 or 2 days to do all that, when really that task can take up to a week.
Thank you, Anthony.
Lovely, thank you.
Greatly appreciated. Guys, we're going to very... Oh, do we have one question?
Yeah.
What responsibility do the selling agents take for representation made about property?
Sure. None, really. And I think that they should be more accountable. Sorry, Mark, and sorry, Lisa. So what the contract says is that the buyer cannot rely on any representations outside the contract. So if the agent says, look, this property is going to increase in value by 50% in 12 months, then I mean that's the agent being a little bit creative, but there is no responsibility on the vendor. But one obligation that the agent does have is to disclose a material fact. And an example of that might be if there was a death or say suicide or something in the apartment, the agent must disclose that. There has been some case law where agents were aware of certain things and actively misled buyers. So one of those cases in particular where the agent was selling this unit block and was aware that the vacant land in front was going to be another unit block because they had the listing, and they were telling the buyers that this property would benefit from some wonderful views because it currently did, and that unit block went up and those views were lost. So an agent shouldn't actively mislead, but I think they have a license to be a little bit creative in terms of what representations they make to the buyer.
What responsibility does the buyer's agent have?
Right, a buyer's agent.
Yep.
Look, the buyer's agent is meant to be there acting in the best interest of the buyer. I think they don't have any responsibility other than trying to secure the deal. So we often see buyer's agents come to our office and they will sit in our office all day and we're acting for a vendor until the contracts are exchanged. And I think that really is one of their strengths, and they're like a bulldog, and they will keep pressing and pushing until the contract's exchanged. But in terms of liability, I don't see that they have any. They're not the solicitors, they're not acting. All they're trying to do is negotiate. And if they end up paying more for the property and the property is secured, often the client's happy with that because they got the property. So I'd say none unless you think otherwise. Mark, buyer's agent responsibility? Nothing. A little bit.
All right. Thank you. Well, I think we're good. Was that all? Yes. Okay.
Any other questions, guys? I think we'll both go we're going to just the next couple of next 3 or 4 minutes before we move over to Chrissy Drinks and the paella that's waiting for us out there. We're going to talk to Billy and Binan just very quickly. They're going to show us an opportunity of a property. It's different. It's something you can buy for 198k, and they're going to talk about it today. And something you can buy with the super, so it sort of relates to a lot of things we've spoken about today. And over to Billy and Binan.
Well done, boys.
So how do we get in touch with you?
Oh, I'm happy to give you her details. Thank you. Yeah, that should be another one. Very good, mate.
Just before we get started, guys, massive thank you to Lisa and Mark putting this on tonight. It's really nice to see so many familiar faces, but welcome to everyone that's new as well. We're just going to touch very briefly on a project that we've got coming into the new year. Vidal, myself, Mark, the commercial team, we're pretty passionate about entry-level property, something that you can get yourself into for as little as 10% deposit on 198,000.
Slides. Yep, no problem. Yep.
So, Bunnings, French's Forest, Allambie Heights. This is probably one of the most exciting projects we've seen come to market in a few years now. We're fortunate to be familiar with the developer. We've worked very closely with Trent Construction in the past. I think Rob might actually be in the room tonight, so if you've got any questions, you've got everyone around you tonight to get all the information you need. But it's a combination of commercial storage, far from a lock-up garage. This is commercial grade storage and warehousing. To put this on the map for you, next slide please. We're on the corner of the new Bunnings going in. Now this is going to be Australia's largest Bunnings. It's an absolute monster, so it ties in really nicely with the whole commercial idea of storage and warehousing, given you're so close in proximity. There's actually a couple of really good businesses operating in that area at the moment as well. and you're fortunate to benefit from $300 million worth of road upgrades along Warringah Road, due to the hospital that's just gone in next door, giving you access out onto Lakehurst Parkway, Warringah Road, which will have you in the city, North Sydney, Chatswood, and out of the beaches within minutes. So in terms of location, we haven't seen something servicing the greater northern beaches like this in a really long time. We've been fortunate to sell a similar product in Cromer and Brookvale, which have done extremely successful. We've got some case studies of that in just a moment. The ones that we've highlighted in red are the most similar to storage, ones that I've got for sale alongside Mark and the team, and Badan's going to touch on the warehousing in just a moment. But we do want to highlight the capital growth that we've seen out of these storage units at a very similar price point over the years have been as strong as the residential sector. Now, that's something that's not commonly talked about. As I said, one of the reasons I love this product so much is the fact it's extremely entry level. You can be in with as little as 10% deposit on 198,000, and this is some of the results that we've seen from selling this stock over the years. Now, the one on your left-hand side, I believe, is Cromer. The one on the right-hand side is Brookvale. Obviously, I think the position at which French's Forest, the Lambie holds, is a superior location, in my opinion, servicing that greater northern beaches, getting you into Manly and other key business areas. The general finishes are something that is really important to touch on. These are, as I said, far from the lock-up garage. They're double height. They will get a nice sized truck or lorry in. Just bear with us, guys. These things have got LED lighting. They've got Wi-Fi. They've got security access. It's 24/7. There's also no car lift, so sometimes with these products, you actually have to go in a car lift to get up to levels 2, 3, and 4 above ground. Not in this case. So if you're interested in talking or hearing a bit more about what you can get yourself into for as little as 10% deposit on 198,000, maybe this is something to consider. I'm going to hand you over to Badan in just a sec now to have a look at what these warehouses look like.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Billy. I think so far the night has been great.
I have a question. What is the biggest for the storage?
The storage cages start at about 22 square meters, and they go up all the way into some of our warehouses. Yeah. The warehouses might also be attractive because some of these have got mezzanines, some don't. So if you're looking for more floor space, I think there's real opportunities to look at something like that as well. They all share the same features and finishes. We can talk and show you some of these floor plans at the end.
Thanks a lot, guys. I think so far the event has been great. Mark has mentioned how the market is doing so far. Anthony and Harry have showed how can we purchase a property, and Billy has just touched base on this great opportunity that has just come through in Allenby Heights, next to the biggest buildings in Australia. So I think you should all have an open mind and have a look through this. Walking through Bill's explanation about storage units and how good they have been doing in terms of capital growth. I'll be leading the warehouse bit. So just gotta get a slide forward to the warehouse. Yeah. So that's what the warehouse is going to look like. So if you have a look at the screen, you got a car park there, you got a warehouse on the left, and an office at the top. So why is this suitable for someone who has a small business who needs storage and an office at the top? Lots of small business owners at the moment, because of COVID, everyone's into drop shipping and they want to get something of their own. And this might be something that's different. With some warehouse units there and offices at the top, this could be a great opportunity. Like if you buy, there's always someone to rent out. And the capital growth with these guys is something crazy. And finishing out right there, you got split level aircon, you got roller doors that is 4.5 meters. And you got mezzanine in there as well, which has the office at the top, concrete floor and carpets. So finishing will be top notch. So you don't have to worry about how the building's gonna look like. The builder Rob has built a lot of in Northern Beaches and has a very good success rate and is very good friends with Novak as well. How are you? Moving on to the next slide. So this is what your floor plan is going to look like in the warehouse. On the left, you have the whole how it looks like, and on the right, you get a mezzanine and an office space. So if you have a look, this in particular is number 62. The whole warehouse can be 180 square meters, which is fairly massive, with mezzanine being almost 60 square meters and the actual warehouse 120 square meters. So I think that's a fair bit of space for a very good amount of money, and the capital growth is almost 50 to 60% minimum. And we'll pull you up some results after this. So that's a normal sales map, how your full plan is going to look like. And it's level 3, so from the office you have a nice view throughout the Northern Beaches as well. Yeah, next slide please. That's it. Yeah. Sorry, it looks like the price comparison is a bit mixed up. But yeah, just like storage units.